us, who is the new halftime assistant coordinator. And although he's not on staff, we're grateful for Bob Buckham's help, who through the generosity of the Archdiocese assists us as he is able. I would like to note, though, that CoSA is a volunteer-driven program, and the role of those of us on staff is only to support the real work of CoSA, which is done by the volunteers, many of whom are here tonight. CoSA is its volunteers. So let's give them a big hand. And now I'd like to ask our new associate coordinator to introduce some of our guests. Tina.
Good evening, everyone. We'd like to first welcome CoSA's key supporters who are here tonight. So please do stand up when your names are called so we can acknowledge you. So we'd like to first welcome His Grace, Archbishop Millar, the Archbishop of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Vancouver. Thank you, Archbishop, for being here. Wendy Vanderval Martin. She's the Associate Director of CoSA Canada. Barb Van Voot. She's the District Director, Pacific District Office of the Correctional Service Canada. Stephanie Chalafoux Taylor, the Regional Administrator, Indigenous Initiatives. And we'd like to welcome Father Stanley Galvin and Christina, his office manager at the cathedral, who are so grateful for they arranged all of our meetings in the Vancouver cathedral at the hall at the cathedral. Welcome, Father. Of course, Father Mako Watanabe, who is the chair of the CoSA Vancouver Fraser Valley Board of Directors and chaplain for mission institutions. We'd also like to thank now and for the presence of our correctional partners who are here, so let's welcome them. First, we have Jessica Beard. She's a project officer for Indigenous Initiatives. Jessica. Stephanie Boileau. She's a program manager from Metro Vancouver East Community Corrections. We have Justin Chow, area director from Metro Vancouver East Community Corrections. Bhupinder Gill, parole officer from Vancouver. Bhupinder. Wayne Gray, who is a parole officer from New Westminster. Jody Harbour, area director from Fraser Valley Community Corrections. Dennis Herbst, area director from Metro Vancouver West Community Corrections. Kaja Hook, parole officer from Belkin House. We have Dal Johal, parole officer from Vancouver. Howard Kwan, parole officer from Belkin House. Patricia Shea, parole officer from Surrey. Tarvinder Sidhu, parole officer from Vancouver. And we'd also like to welcome Father Richard Rennie, regional chaplain for CSC. Deacon Tim Morris, he's the chaplain, Pacific Institution, a regional treatment center with his wife Denise. Mike Mahoney, Director of Development at the Archdiocese of Vancouver. And last but not the least, Nicholas Albers. He's the reporter with the BC Catholic.
Thank you, Tina. Tonight is a really, really special night. It's the 20th anniversary of Vancouver Fraser Valley CoSA, and that's really something to celebrate, and we are going to celebrate it. So to tell you about the wonderful things in store, I'm going to call on our anniversary committee to tell us more about it.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to CoSA Vancouver Fraser Valley's 20th anniversary celebration. CoSA Vancouver Fraser Valley 20th anniversary banquet's theme is the ripple effect. The ripple effect is an abstract metaphor that describes how our actions or non-actions reverberate throughout our physical and social world. It's the repercussions of an event that is experienced far beyond its immediate impact. The scope and significance of sexual assault is a major issue, affecting not only the victim and the perpetrator. Consider the offense and the number of people this could impact. Sexual abuse has profound effects which include secondary traumatization that may occur to the people who were not the actual victims of the assault, but were nonetheless adversely impacted by it. The assault will impact the victim's immediate family, the people that are related to those who have been victims of the abuse, their friends, their social circles. Also impacted is the family of the individual that has been convicted of a sexual offense, their social and work circles included, as well as other significant relationships. An example of this may be intergenerational sexual abuse. This occurs when one family member takes the violence they've experienced and passes it to another family member. Not everyone that gets abused goes on to abuse others, but statistics show a link between being abused and becoming someone who abuses. Sexual abuse may also impact the professionals who choose to work in this area, such as the correctional staff, parole officers, police, probation, the courts, psychologists, psychiatrists. Some treatment professionals may also mistakenly feel overly responsible for the outcomes. Professionals working in this area have to understand and deal constantly with the contradictory expectations of all the involved individuals, the agencies, their own personal friends and family, and society as a whole. Professionals who do therapeutic work with perpetrators may feel alienated as their friends question their motivation for this kind of work. Sexual abuse also affects people who are overwhelmed by the stories that they're hearing each and every day being reported in the media, as well as the journalists who are reporting it. It may contribute to occupational stress in child protection workers, in social circles and work circles as well, the whole of society in general, and the list goes on, and everyone hurts. That sexual abuse creates ripples is not surprising, but CoSA VFV is creating its own ripple effect. It's based on the understanding that we are all connected. Thoughts and actions are like stones dropped in a pond, and they create ripples that travel outward. A CoSA circle is established for the benefit of both the core member and the community at large. It's important here to note that CoSA's use of the term core member goes beyond the label of offender, perpetrator, abuser, or sex offender. The term core member supports those who have harmed others and helps them to establish a new narrative identity. The most effective way to prevent sexual violence is through primary prevention, which means stopping it before it occurs. And for prevention efforts to work, they have to target risk factors. The public has never been enthusiastic about sex offender support. CoSA volunteering is an opportunity for the community to play a direct role in the restoration, reintegration, and risk management of people who are often seen with only fear and anger. While much of society considers high-risk individuals as not worthy, CoSA utilizes a strength-based approach for constructive integration and ultimately reduces recidivism or repeat offense rates by 72 to 83%. CoSA works. Circles of Support and Accountability offers a caring community around people with offending histories who are at high risk of harming themselves or others. Circle work is a balance of support and accountability. Just a moment, okay, sorry. Circle work is a balance of support and accountability based on empathy and compassion. CoSA utilizes a holistic approach focusing on holding core members accountable for harms they caused while supporting their efforts to live crime-free lives, thereby building stronger and safer communities for all of us. There are also positive ripple effects for those working in the sexual assault field, and it relates to the ability to make a positive difference with the core member and the community, alongside care workers, counselors, police, parole, probation, treatment professionals, social assistant networks, and neighborhood groups. CoSA and CoSA Circle volunteers work together in order to best support the core member and the community at large. CoSA aims to reconnect the core member with the larger community it empowers and supports the core member to become better connected to the wider community and over time to establish and nurture lasting relationships outside of his or her circle. A safe, successful, and engaged life beyond CoSA provides the skills and the confidence, as well as a strong motivation for core members to remain crime-free, thereby increasing public safety. The simple act of tossing a small stone into water will result in a change that can be felt much farther away than the initial entry point. Proof that actions can lead to much bigger changes, even if you can't see how far they reach. Like a stone dropped in a pond, the ripples that CoSA creates spreads far and wide with the ultimate objective of no more victims. And as for tonight, I'm going to ask Joan-Lynn to come up and talk about the lovely table decor that we have relating to our theme tonight.
Thank you, Anita. Good evening, everyone. Just before I start, I'd like to draw your attention to the colored markers that are at each place setting. These are washable markers that you can use to write on glasses or china, and they've been generously donated by Miriam Saldana, one of our new CoSA volunteers. I don't think that Miriam and Norbert arrived tonight. Miriam, are you here? I don't think so. Anyway, we'd like to thank her very much for that donation. And now I'm going to tell you about the table centerpieces. So first of all, the candle has always been seen as a symbol of hope. And that's, when I thought about it, it was hope for the healing for the victims of crime and for the offenders, and also hope that we will have safer communities and free from fear. Now, as Anita described about the ripple effect, the water and the beads symbolize this ripple effect from stones thrown into water. And I think Anita did a wonderful job of talking about the ripple effect and thought of many more things than I had thought of. But as we can see, and we'll hear later too from some of the other talks about the effect of the crime, not just on the victim and the offender, but on the families and friends of both of them. And the circles of people around the vases represent our communities, which are made safer through the efforts of volunteers and core members, striving for the goal of no more victims. Thank you.
Now we're going to present, basically, we're just going to talk a little bit about the CoSA story and what it's all about, what we've accomplished over the last 20 years. Most of you by now know the CoSA story of where this all began. I'll repeat part of it here, a very small part of it here, for those of you who don't know it, because it speaks to the gratitude that is owed to the people that helped build this organization. Early in 1994, a pastor, director of an inner-city ministry in Hamilton, Ontario, Reverend Harry Nye, took on the task of supporting a recently released individual who had been convicted of a sexual offense. The basic idea was that by inviting in community volunteers as mentors, a circle could be created, forming a circle of support and accountability with the core member. From this early experience, the program that we now call CoSA emerged. CoSA Vancouver Fraser Valley is a nonprofit volunteer organization operated by the Catholic Justice Services Society, a registered society which is run by an elected executive drawn from its membership. CoSA VFV maintains a positive relationship with our community stakeholders and partners, working closely with multiple police forces, probation, parole offices, and other nonprofit community organizations. Correctional Services Canada, chaplaincy, was the initial funder of CoSA and supported it for many of the years through contracts with M2W2 and then Catholic Charities Justice Services. In the fall of 2020, Correctional Services Canada Community Corrections began supporting CoSA VFV. CSC continues to be an integral part of CoSA VFV, working closely with all our staff, both inside and outside of the federal correctional institutions. Through most of the last 20 years, federal agencies, either Chaplaincy or Public Safety Canada, were the largest funders. And from its inception, the Archdiocese of Vancouver supported us morally and throughout the years as they were able to financially. While CSC Community Corrections continues to offer significant, but still only partial support, it is necessary to find new sources of funding to support and expand our programming and to meet a vital community need. CoSA Fraser Valley began in 2003, initially in Abbotsford. Then in 2004, we opened circles in Chilliwack. Then, 2005, we began offering circles in Surrey. By 2009, we had a total of 10 current and active circles, and things were starting to get busy. In 2010, circles were opened in Vancouver. Before 2010, Abbotsford and Surrey were the two major sites for circles. It was a slow start in Vancouver, as CoSA was not yet known in that region, but eventually it became a primary site that would end up hosting approximately 50% of all of CoSA VFV circles. Once Vancouver began hosting circles, the organization's name changed from CoSA Fraser Valley to CoSA Vancouver Fraser Valley. Then the pandemic struck, and restrictions were put in place. It was not always possible to meet in person, and something had to be done in order to continue providing support for the core members. Anxiety, as well as distancing from support networks, made this a very difficult time for many of our core members. So alternative and creative service provisions were initiated, and as a result, CoSA VFV began offering virtual circles for core members. In 2020, our first visual CoSA circle was opened in Victoria, then in Prince George. In 2021, Penticton was added, and in 2022, Kamloops circles began. CoSA Vancouver Fraser Valley has operated since 2003, expanding in 2010 to include Metro Vancouver, spanning over 16 cities and regions. From 2003 through to 2010, CoSA VFV dealt exclusively with individuals who had been released from federal corrections. And in 2010, CoSA VFV expanded to also include individuals released from provincial institutions. Over the last 20 years, combining in-person and virtual circles, CoSA VFV has been able to provide support and accountability to approximately 260 individuals. Congratulations to CoSA Vancouver Fraser Valley for 20 years of remarkable growth. Growth in vision, effectiveness, support, and volunteerism. The result is an organization of like-minded people coming together that today has made an impact on the safety of all of our communities. CoSA has been there for our communities for the past 20 years, and with your support, we promise to be here for the next 20 years. Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Claudia. She'll be coming and speaking to you.
Hello, everyone. Because it's such a special evening today, we have some door prizes that we're going to draw at the end. And this is in appreciation for all the volunteers. So I encourage the volunteers to stay until the very end because there are very good prizes there. So we have a sweater that was knitted and donated by Bob, a core member, and a blanket that was also knitted and donated by Bob. We have a charcuterie board from Jerry, a volunteer. We have a winter safety kit donated by a volunteer, a laptop desk also donated by a volunteer, an Italian purse and wallet donated by a volunteer. We have 2 candles that were donated by James, a core member. We have 2 tickets for Flyover Canada, downtown in Vancouver. And last but not least, a gift card for a restaurant in Kitsilano, La Quercia, which I'm hoping to win, actually. But yeah, so please stay until the end. And before we can begin with the dinner, I would like to ask Maureen's former alleged boss, and also the former coordinator of the Office for Service and Justice to come over. Also happens to be my husband. Thank you.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Chris, and you may recall from last year's dinner when I shared how Maureen found me a wife. So tonight we're here to celebrate a second miracle, and that is this 20th anniversary of CoSA. So I'm privileged to honor and embarrass Maureen and Father Mako on behalf of all of us, core members, volunteers, victims, corrections, parole officers, service agencies, police, who understand how incredible the ripple effects are from 2 decades of CoSA, and Anita did a very nice job of detailing those. And all of this was almost not to be. In the beginning, before Archbishop Millar, Father Mako, and even Maureen, that's going back a long time now, Maureen, there had been 2 other attempts at CoSA by other agencies, and both had failed. The first had no volunteers and no circles. The second shattered the trust of partner agencies by an unfortunate antagonistic attitude. But on the third attempt, here's where Maureen and Father Mako enter the picture. We're here today, and look at how far CoSA has come. So volunteers, just look at how many of you are here. Some of those from very early days, I won't point out who those people are, and many of you are sitting even on more than one circle. Core members, look at how many of you are here, and thank you for your vulnerability in your circles and for being here too. And for partner agencies, again, look who's in the room. Thank you for your trust, and what a marvelous job Maureen and Father Mako have done in building all of these relationships. So over 20 years, CoSA has grown, it's adapted, it's matured, but it's always retained its core. And as a little aside, I think for the long-term volunteers, you would agree, it's also kept what it's most important, that annual feast at St. Andrew Kim with that amazing food at the Support and Development Day. And in all seriousness, let me conclude maybe with the words of Pope Francis, who on Monday will be celebrating 10 years as Pope. He's got nothing on CoSA, eh? He's only halfway of CoSA. And so from his words in the joy of the gospel, I invite you to reflect with me on how what His Holiness is saying is really at the heart of what you personally are doing with CoSA. So this is Pope Francis. The gospel tells us constantly to run the risk of a face-to-face encounter with others. It tells us constantly to run the risk of a face-to-face encounter with others, with their physical presence which challenges us, with their pain and their pleas, with their joy which infects us in our close and continuous interaction. True faith in the incarnate Son of God is inseparable from self-giving, from membership in the community, from service, from reconciliation with others. And so, will you all please join me in expressing our heartfelt gratitude to Father Mako and Maureen, who through pain, pleas, and joys have led CoSA over these 20 years, not quite 30 yet, to be a tangible expression of true faith. And Maureen and Father Mako, please come forward so that you can be recognized. So as a little token, we have some gifts for Maureen and Father Mako. Can we put you on the spot? Do you want to say anything or no? You're welcome to if you like. No.
No, Father Mako, they're going to hear from me all night.
We can put the step out for you too, Maureen.
I think the only reason they included me is so that the wrath of Maureen on them would be less. But really, as far as the board and originally the advisory committee for Catholic Charities, it's really just been a privilege to see how people have responded, volunteers, core members, and that's really where the work has been done. So thank you for the gift anyway, but yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to the committee for their ideas and perseverance it took to make them all come together. This has been many months in planning and they've put a ton of time into it, so we're really grateful for all their work. I would now like to welcome up Archbishop Millar of the Archdiocese of Vancouver to come forward and bless our food. Archbishop Millar has been a long-standing supporter of CoSA by providing staff support, resources, and funding since he became Archbishop in 2009. We are so grateful that he has never missed a CoSA banquet. Thank you.
Thanks, Anita. Thanks so much. I must say, this is a wonderful banquet. I get to go to a lot of, dinners and so on, obviously, in parishes and so on. But this one is particularly special because it touches the heart, and one is able to see core members, volunteers, staff people come together in what is really a magnificent kind of manifestation of what we're called to do as people of God. It really is a blessed ministry, and I give thanks to all of you who work so zealously and have for 20 years. In a special way, of course, Maureen and Father Mako for what they have done. So join me as we kind of just offer a prayer of thanksgiving for the 20 years and a blessing over the food. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good and gracious Father, we come before you this evening with praise and thanksgiving for the gift you have made to Vancouver and the Fraser Valley of CoSA for its 20 years of ministry to your people. Continue to bless all those who sponsor this wonderful ministry of yours. Especially bless the core members, the volunteers, all those who make it possible for us to rejoice in your goodness and in the healing that you provide to your people. And now as we gather in conversation and to hear more about this good work, we invoke your blessing upon the food that has been prepared for us. Keep us mindful of the needs of others and listen as we pray. Bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts, which we are about to receive from thy bounty through Christ our Lord. Amen. And just before we go, I have something I'd like to give to Maureen and Father Mako. Maureen, this is a special gift from the Archdiocese for CoSA for $5,000 that we hope that you will be able to use for your good work. You're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Grace, and thanks to the Archdiocese. I also want to thank you for all you've done over the years and all that you continue to do. So I would ask you and your table to start at the buffet. I believe it's ready. Pretty neat, eh? Did you like that? I didn't like being part of it, or especially watching myself, but I like watching the others. So I want to thank Bob particularly for organizing and planning the filming of the video. Thank you, Bob. And thank you to all those who were able to share in it. Jerry wasn't able to be with us tonight. He's out of town, but we're grateful for his perspective. He was regional chaplain at the time that we were first offered a contract through chaplaincy. Those are many, many years ago. We've been down the road since then. So it is great to look at the past, but we have a lot to celebrate about CoSA today. Presently, we currently have circles for 40 core members. Actually, I think we're going to have 41 next week. 21 of them are on federal orders, 8 on provincial, and 11 have completed their orders. Excuse me. 9 reside in Vancouver, 9 in Surrey, 12 in Abbotsford, and 5 in Chilliwack. Of the 40, 5 are virtual circles. We are happy to say that 28, 1 or 2 of them got sick tonight, but 28 of the core members who live in the area were able to join us tonight. So there's probably 26 here. In the past 20 years, we've had over 260 circles for male, female, transgender, non-binary, as well as many BIPOC core members. There are over 90 volunteers who actually sit on circles supporting the core members. What is new is that we now have virtual volunteers as well who live outside the catchment area. We regret that we can't have them here with us tonight, but we're really grateful for them. We also have over 20 volunteers on our board, fundraising committee, visioning committee, and marketing committees. They are all working behind the scenes to ensure that CoSA will be here and sustainable for the long term. We welcome any of you here who would be interested in joining one of the committees. Through the past year, Christina Abasello was a great help. She's here with us tonight, but has now moved to a full-time position in her own field. We miss her on staff, but are fortunate that she continues to play an active part in our committees and sitting on circles. It was sad in this past year we lost Larry, who was here with us last year, one of our core members, to cancer. Larry's volunteers were able to attend a memorial at his halfway house and share memories of him with the staff and residents. He was a really great core member, and I think he'll be remembered most for his generosity of heart and real kindness to everyone. I don't think I've ever met anyone as kind as he was. Again this year, thanks to the hard work and generosity of our volunteers and our Catholic high school students, we were able to give all of our core members Christmas packages with great presents and homemade baking. With the end of public safety funding last March, it's hard to believe it's a year ago now, we continue to look for sustainable funding. We are grateful to the Correctional Service of Canada Pacific Region for their financial support and to all of our donors who gave so generously this past year. If any of you here tonight are able to help, there are donation slips in the center of the table and a little silver tray. We appreciate any donation, it doesn't matter how large or how small, and a tax receipt will be issued for it. What we have accomplished in the last 20 years and where we are today is a direct result of the support of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Vancouver, the Correctional Service of Canada, CoSA Canada, and especially the dedication of the volunteers and commitment of our core members. We are really grateful to all of you. And finally, we just got some wonderful news that the Correctional Service of Canada will be offering us a contract for the next fiscal year, and that will help to cover some of our expenses. And so now, just having talked about the Correctional Service of Canada, we're going to have some greetings from CSC. Angela?
Sorry, just before I do that, Maya, David, Art, and Carrie, you'll be sharing shortly, so if you can make your way up and come take a seat to the right of the podium, that would be very helpful. Thank you. So, I would like to share a little bit about Barb Van Voot. She began her career in the public sector working for the Correctional Service of Canada as a correctional officer at Mako Institution in 1994. Following that, she spent several years as a parole officer at Mako Institution and the Regional Reception Assessment Center. From 2000 to 2006, she worked in various project management functions within the performance assurance sector at regional headquarters, overseeing investigations, audits, and performance management. In 2006, Barb became the Associate District Director at Community Corrections. She became acting warden at Ferndale Institution in 2010 and was appointed to as warden at Mission Institution in 2011. In 2017, Barb returned to Community Corrections as District Director, Pacific District, and we are so grateful that she could come and join us tonight and share some words. Please welcome Barb.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Barb Van Voot. I'm the District Director for Community Corrections, and I'm delighted to be here today. I've been to several banquets I missed last year, but we were just chatting at our table, noting that 3 years ago, right at the onset of COVID, when everybody was sort of gathering around and not sure if we should be shaking hands or giving a hug and all the things that we were used to doing, and I remember thinking, like, oh, this is so sad, but it'll be over really quickly. So not quite the case, but I'm just delighted that we're sort of getting back to normal and we're able to share a meal and sit together again. So just welcome to everybody. Thanks for letting me slide in at the last minute. I always love to come to this event, and I'm so happy that so many of my team were able to be here as well, representing Community Corrections. I think I've said this before, we don't do this alone. We rely on the support of all of our partners and just this vast group of wonderful volunteers that have decided that they're going to work with our men and women that are reentering the community on various forms of conditional release, be it provincial or federal. And we operate always in partnerships with our community. So thank you, everyone, and thank you also to the core members for joining this program and taking this journey into your success. So I'm extremely proud of making yourselves vulnerable, available, and participating in the program. So part of my role, I was asked to share a few words on behalf of our Regional Deputy Commissioner, Constance Houry. Constance has been in our region for just about a year, and she wasn't able to make it tonight, but she asked me to say a few words on her behalf. So, to Archbishop Millar, thank you for sharing a table with me and for your blessing. Thank you for your support in helping make the Vancouver Fraser Valley VFV, almost like CSC, Circles of Support and Accountability. Pretty soon you're gonna have to change the name to like Pacific or something a little as we get bigger and bigger. Circles of Support and Accountability chapter, one of the largest in Canada. You continue to provide leadership to help released offenders remain safe in their communities. Where there is no guidance, a people fails, but in abundance of counselors, there is safety. Much has changed in the last 20 years in Canada, yet much remains the same. 20 years ago, the Supreme Court of Canada had just ruled that all prisoners had a right to vote. Public Safety Canada was created as a direct response to the terrorist attacks of 9/11 with a mandate to enhance public safety. Today, CSC still has the same priority regarding the safety and security of our communities. We continue to do this by helping offenders to successfully transition from our institutions to the community by providing appropriate and timely interventions and by cultivating productive connections with partners such as CoSA. You as volunteers give your time and faith in support of this program. Not only do you help offenders by providing a safety net to become better prepared as they reintegrate into our communities, but you also provide a buffer to these offenders as they transition from incarceration to gradual release to freedom in the community. For many offenders who have been incarcerated for extended periods, they may have become institutionalized. Being released into a world that has changed over time brings many challenges. You help offenders deal with these challenges by facilitating practical needs, providing a consistent network of emotional support, developing constructive and pro-social strategies to everyday problems, and challenging behaviors and attitudes associated with their offense cycle. Each person has unique needs. What may work for one does not always work for another. Each circle of support tailors a network specific to that individual's needs. Consequently, the wider community benefits with a reduction in recidivism and an increase in public safety while gaining as a productive member of society in all of our neighborhoods. Your examples of leadership, compassion, and acceptance shows confidence that people can change, be successful, and be welcomed. A little note about success and recidivism. The Reduction of Recidivism Framework Act received royal assent in 2021. It required the federal government to develop a framework which would include supporting faith-based and communal initiatives that aim to rehabilitate incarcerated individuals. The framework is structured around 5 priority areas to assist offenders with their reintegration: housing, education, employment, health, and lastly, positive support networks. Research has shown that the risk for committing crime and recidivism is lower when offenders are connected with positive pro-social supports. And this is where CoSA shines. Release conditions sometimes prohibit offenders from having contact with specific friends or groups they associated prior to their offending. This can cause isolation for individuals who will need to develop a positive support network. Stakeholders such as CoSA are a network of positive pro-social supports for those reintegrating to help prevent being isolated and exposed to negative influences. How do we measure success? We measure by looking at how the majority do not get a new federal sentence. The total number of offenders under CSC jurisdiction has declined in recent years, and on a typical day in 21-22, CSC managed 21,181 offenders. The percentage of offenders under community supervision was at its highest rate of 42%, with 8,854. Even with this, CSC continues to face increasingly complex needs from diverse offender populations, including those with extensive histories of violence, affiliations with organized crime, or with serious mental health disorders. Despite the impacts of COVID-19, our efforts to prepare and ensure the successful reintegration of offenders yielded increasingly successful reintegration outcomes for the 3rd consecutive year. In 21-22, nearly 88% of offenders reached the 5-year mark at the end of their sentence without a readmission into federal custody. In a broader sense, we have seen an increase in the number of Canadians who think crime in their neighborhood has decreased. Additionally, Statistics Canada research shows decreases in crime severity in British Columbia and Canada compared to 20 years ago. Ultimately, your work with offenders plays a role in how successful offenders are. We know offenders supported through CoSA have dramatically lower rates of reoffending. It is worth remembering that research shows offending rates for men who participate in CoSA are 70 to 83% lower than for men who did not participate. Programs like CoSA benefit the broader community. When offenders are better able to reintegrate, they are less likely to reoffend and more likely to become productive members of society. You help to keep our communities safer. In closing, CSC is grateful for the support and assistance CoSA provides to both offenders and staff. I would like to congratulate CoSA for their 20 years of service, and I look forward to many more years in partnership together. Always makes me kind of giggle when you stand and thank CSC, and we really should be thanking you. So thank you back. So have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much, Barb, for sharing with us tonight. Your words are inspirational, and we just really appreciate the presence and support of CSC. Maureen?
Sorry, Barb, that you had to get on this podium. I tried to get out of it too, but it didn't work. Oh, you did? Good, okay. So now I'm thrilled to be able to introduce to you our next speaker. I first met her at a CoSA gathering in Guelph, Ontario. From the very start, I knew she was special, someone I wanted to connect with. She is brilliant and gifted, but more importantly, she is a servant to all. She's compassionate, she's caring, and really inclusive. Since she began as Associate Director of CoSA Canada in 2021, she has been a voice and looked out for the needs of Vancouver Fraser Valley CoSA. I am so glad she's come all the way tonight from New Brunswick to share with us on our 20th anniversary. Please help me to welcome Dr. Wendy Vanderwall Martin.
Good evening. It really is a thrill to be here. And, it's only like 1 a.m. in New Brunswick or something.
No excuses.
No excuses. All right. So thank you to Maureen and to the board for paying half my flight to get here. It really is a huge privilege. I want to express, and words don't really cut it, how do you say thank you to the team that operates the most effective and vibrant CoSA site in all of Canada. Maureen or somebody recently said they thought maybe it was Chris who said maybe it was the most. It is. Y'all are the best, the biggest, the best. You've exemplified working with partners. You've exemplified growth and expansion beyond just one community into really the entire province. So yeah, CoSA Pacific, CoSA BC, we have to probably rebrand, and I'll find someone pro bono to do it. You've served the most core members and are actively serving the most core members. And you have an indomitable coordinator. In fact, tonight I asked Father Mako whether, according to Catholic theology, cloning was allowed. Because if I could clone Maureen, I would have a Maureen in every major city and region across the country. Because along with her team, honey, you get me, I'll get you. That's how it works. I've got the mic right now. But truly, the vision of Maureen and her team to expand using virtual circles, to be able to take volunteers from anywhere, to serve core members from anywhere, is what is going to be the sustainable vision for CoSA across Canada. Since the funding of our capacity building project ended at the end of March, we certainly have quite a number of our sites that have had to cut back. We have several sites on hiatus, closing. And so what was a 15-site network is functioning a lot less today. As a newbie to CoSA, everyone I talk to, whether it's politicians, whether it's social partners, whoever we talk to, always says, we love CoSA. But finding sustainable funding has been immensely challenging. And yet, CoSA VFV is thinking about the next 5 years of sustainability. That's incredible. the amount of work that the team here has done, board, staff, volunteers. It really is exciting for me to be here in person and to be able to attend some circles tomorrow. Maureen, you're going to really kick me because I've totally left my notes and, get the shepherd's crook out when you want me to leave. I took my role with CoSA Canada because of my deep belief in the interconnectedness we have as human beings. I served for many years in another ministry where we were reaching marginalized people who'd been traumatized and excluded, and I am convinced that the deepest lie in our world is that some lives matter more than others. When I finished my doctorate, I got my one and only tattoo, and it is the words of Archbishop Desmond Tutu: "If I diminish you, I diminish myself. If I diminish you, I am diminished." And so this phrase from Archbishop Tutu is connected to the philosophy Ubuntu, an African philosophy that says we are humans only in the context of being in relationship with other humans. It's in stark contrast with the individualism that has permeated so much of the West, leaving many of us isolated and vulnerable to trying to get our needs met, sometimes in very unhealthy ways. Ubuntu, on the other hand, is deeply communal. It recognizes that I am because you are. I am because you are quite different than I think, therefore I am. I only truly discover what it means to be human as I relate to your humanity in the full spectrum of love and pain, of suffering, of generosity, of deprivation, of joy, of memory, and of story. Mother Teresa said it this way: "The problem with the world is that we have forgotten that we belong to one another." That feeling of belonging gets especially fragile the more we push to the outer edges, where people experience marginalization or are carrying burdens that are too heavy for them to carry alone. I was just part of a Zoom call this morning with the National Associations Active in Criminal Justice, and Howard Sapers was giving us a presentation on the correlation between structured intervention units within our correctional institutions and those with mental health challenges. And it was a painful snapshot of how often mental illness can be criminalized in our nation. Our incarcerated neighbors feel that experience of society at large forgetting that we belong to one another. But they belong to us, and we belong to them. And the impact of us forgetting that belonging is tragic, with ripple effect. But when we have the chance to stand with those who feel their intrinsic dignity is muted, or that they are disposable to their community at large, we get to be part of enacting Ubuntu, whether you knew the word or not. We get to live in a way that participates in the work of ensuring that each person's dignity is restored and that no one is thrown to the side. It's in this action that we participate in cultivating safety within our communities. Restorative justice is intrinsic to the way of living that Ubuntu encapsulates. Harm is addressed relationally, so that both the one who experienced harm and the one who caused the harm have a chance to experience healing within the community. I'm incredibly proud to be part of CoSA. and the ways that it walks out Ubuntu. In a time when there's deep hopelessness, I have 3 young adult children, where isolation and division are rampant, CoSA builds relationships with a very diverse group of folks. I mean, look around us. We don't look the same, we don't think the same, we don't come from the same places, and yet we are here, as one speaker already mentioned, with common purpose. And we build relationships where honesty, trust, mutuality, and growth can flourish. The kind of mutual regard and dignity that are embodied in circle meetings is a gift that our society and communities so deeply need. It isn't uncommon to hear from people who volunteer in a variety of capacities that they receive more than they give. That's a typical testimony of volunteers. And while our motivations, for those of you who are volunteers tonight, may be different, Ubuntu would suggest that regardless of our reason for volunteering, the relationships we build have the effect of humanizing us. You see, we grow in our capacity to be compassionate and understanding, not only to our core members or our fellow volunteers, but also, hopefully, to ourselves. And where such authentic relationships are intentionally invested in, human flourishing emerges. Transformation happens. And it isn't only transformation in the core members. All of us who participate in the relationships of CoSA have the opportunity to experience transformation, and that invitation is ongoing, day by day, into week by week, into month and month, up to 20 years. I met with Paul Horn, the mayor of Mission, yesterday, and he sends these words. He said, "I'm sorry that I'm not able to be here in person to celebrate the 20th anniversary of CoSA here in the Fraser Valley. But I hope you can pass along this message to Maureen and the board and all of the volunteers behind this incredibly important work." Mayor Horn goes on, "Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to see the human being instead of a behavior. But when we do so, we are being truly loving and generous. CoSA invests in people and sees the goodness within. By bringing people together in the spirit of love, your work cultivates wellness for your core members and the community around them. And your work creates a lasting generational effect for us all. As a mayor, I am blessed to learn about the local heroes quietly doing incredible work. If more of our community could see what CoSA VFV is doing, I believe they would be both grateful and inspired to give back to their communities. On behalf of the community of Mission, thank you for all you do." After just a year and a half with CoSA, I can attest to the amazing people who connect and serve. There's a well of energy and commitment to ensure that no one's left behind, even as we observe good boundaries. A deep willingness to go the extra mile, to risk, to put their own reputations on the line when friends and family might not quite understand why they're building such deep and lasting relationships with those who've been convicted of sexual offenses. CoSA folks practice looking beyond the present challenges to truly see the person and to encourage that person to write a new chapter of identity, strength, worthiness, and value. CoSA VFV has been investing in community flourishing for 20 years. Of course, this contributes to public safety, but I submit to you that the work of CoSA goes even deeper than that. Preventing victimization by accompanying more than 260 Corps members over its history has a ripple effect that we can't even fully appreciate, because the impact of prevention is inevitably underestimated precisely because it's invisible. But the people in this room, at this dinner, have an intimate connection to the invaluable contribution of prevention. There's a lot of work to do to keep on telling the story of circles of support and accountability in the province of British Columbia. It's a story of highly committed community members, a coordinator that I do still want to clone, and Corps members who make choices every day to open themselves and do the hard work of thinking in new ways, being in new ways, and connecting in risk-taking ways in the world. It's a story of healing and prevention. It's a story of Ubuntu, where together we learn that if I diminish you, I diminish myself. A story that recognizes I am because we are. The CoSA story reminds us that we belong to each other. We all have a part to play in working for the common good, a vision of human flourishing where our children and our grandchildren will be able to make rich connections in community and continue the work towards the goal of no more victims. Congratulations. Thank you so very much to all of those who serve in relationship, and might we remember deeply that we are more truly human because of this work we've been invited and have the opportunity to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for your words of encouragement, for the inspiration, for telling us about Ubuntu. And while we would like to have a little piece of Maureen in each of us, we'd also like to have a piece of Wendy in each of us as well. Thank you so much, and this is something for you.
So my name is Maya, and I started CoSA last year. The first time I sat on a circle was February 2022. Since I've been in 2 circles. The first one got unfortunately cancelled, but I've been working with the second one for 6 months now. I came across CoSA in a very random way. It was through a conversation that a friend referred me to CoSA and told me that they were looking for volunteers. It was like it was meant to be. And as a criminology student, I think it would have been stupid of me not to apply for it. So I did. And I guess you know how this story unfolded. I passed the interview phase, got trained, and then started my CoSA journey. Since I've learned a lot about myself. And something that stood out for me was the fact that every time I walked into a room, a training, or tonight, like a banquet, I always noticed that I am one of the youngest, if not the youngest. And I'm not gonna lie, it's quite intimidating to be the youngest in a room full of adults, full of people that know much more about life, people with much more baggage, emotional baggage and living experiences. So instead of diving myself into those thoughts where I'm questioning myself and asking if I really belong here, I decided to embrace this opportunity and go for it. So I changed my mindset to what can I do differently? How can I contribute to the group? What can I add to the table that these older people with much more experiences don't know? And that could be from stuff that I learned from my criminology and psychology studies, or from qualities I have, or even what some people would call my innocent approach to the world. So if you're new here in CoSA, whether a volunteer member or like a core member, I want you to know that CoSA is a safe and comfortable space for you to learn, make mistakes, and gradually improve. And this is the main reason why I am here tonight, and why I show up every week ready and excited to contribute to the community. Another thing that I'm lucky for is that my friend, the one that referred me to CoSA, has been by my side every minute of it. We've been assigned to the same circles, we went to training sessions together, and she's always open to share her experience, her knowledge, and wisdom. Now that I think about it, I can tell she's my CoSA mentor. I wouldn't be here tonight if it weren't for her, literally. She offered me a ride, picked me up, and brought me here tonight. So thank you, Nisha. I'm also grateful for the circle I'm working with. I'm sitting with one of the seniors of CoSA, such an awesome person. Always open to learning about others, always having good questions, and such a good sense of humor. So having on my right Nisha and on my left Phil, I couldn't hope for a better start in CoSA. It's only while writing this speech that I realized that 4 minutes are not enough to talk about how this purposeful journey matters to me and about how much I learned from our core member. All what I'm gonna leave you with is that my CoSA circles are the highlight of my week and definitely the most thought-provoking hour of it. So thank you for our core member for being here and for trusting us. And just to wrap up, I want to say a big thank you to Maureen and Angela and Bob for giving me this opportunity. Thank you to all of you core members for being open and vulnerable. Thank you to all of you volunteers for offering your time. And thank you, CoSA, for organizing this and bringing all of us here tonight to celebrate the 20th year anniversary of CoSA. And most importantly, 20 years of support and accountability. Thank you so much.
I do want to say, if you think it's intimidating being the youngest, you should try being the oldest. So now I would like to invite Jack to say a few words.
So as I walked in today to the banquet, I was recruited to stand up and say something. And so I really did enjoy the supper. And I realized that there were two very important people here today who got me here. And that is the Archbishop and Maureen. There was this cousin of mine who was getting a award from the Pope, and the Archbishop had a nice party for him, and the cousin said, "Oh, let me talk to Maureen, because she knows that my wife was in corrections and maybe she'll be a good volunteer." And so Maureen and my wife had a good chat. And when they finished, they said, "Jack, sign up next week." Okay. So that's how I got here. But what I stay for is the friendship that I get from the core member and my fellow volunteers. And I really appreciate the education and the support that so many people put into keeping this going. And the way I am being a volunteer is through Zoom. And I've been to 3 circles now, and they're on Zoom. And I think that it's fantastic. It meets my needs. I can be wherever I want in the province, wherever, on Monday evening, and I can still attend the circle. I've been to family dinners and just say, "Excuse me, I can go." And I can go to my cottage. I can do all kinds of things. And so I see that there are people that are, I sure hope that the CoSA keeps working and developing the Zoom for the rest of the province. And one of the other things that I'd encourage you, if you get a chance to do the Zoom type circle, try it. And one of the other things that I like about it is in my parish, there was some kind of an idea that CoSA couldn't work in their parish. And because these core members couldn't be around the school and the things like that. And I'm able to talk whenever I meet somebody and say, you still can do prison ministry. You still can do it. And CoSA really helps out. And can I quit?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you. Let's give a big hand to all our core members. Thank you so much. And you can go back if you want or not if you don't. So the next item is the one I really struggled with. The next item on the agenda is CoSA in 2043. So we looked at the past and we looked at the present, and now we've come to the hard part. What does the next 20 years look like for Vancouver Fraser Valley CoSA? The first thing I can think of is, thanks to Barb, we'll have to look at changing our name because we're not just Vancouver Fraser Valley. But looking at the next 20 years, I can think of 3 really easy answers. First thing I'm sure of, in 20 years, I'll not be doing this job. And second, there will still be a need for CoSA. There will always be a need, always core members seeking support and accountability, and volunteers who are willing to help them. And third, I am confident, especially tonight hearing everything, that the Archdiocese of Vancouver, the Correctional Service of Canada, and all our correctional partners will continue to see the value and effectiveness of CoSA. For the hard part, I wish I had a crystal ball so I could see the future, but I don't. What I do see, though, is that the details and exact shape of CoSA for the next 20 years may change a little, but the heart of it will never change. The dedication and commitment of core members wanting to turn their lives around to be productive members of society, and volunteers who believe they can change and deserve that second chance will remain the same. So to summarize, in 2043, my crystal ball says that the core members and volunteers will still be here, keeping their communities safe. So to look and say, close off tonight, I want to thank all of you for coming, all of you who made it possible. Thank you to our anniversary committee, to Barb, to all our core members and volunteers who shared. A special thanks to Steve Grout, who has faithfully taped the event this evening and is always there to help us. And that makes it possible, his taping of it, to share with our virtual volunteers and core members. That's something we have to look at in the next 20 years too, is how do we keep in touch? We don't tape our core members, we don't share that publicly. How do we involve them? Is there another celebration? Is there another gathering? But it's something we've got to seriously look at, our board and our visioning committee. And I want to thank Archbishop Mako. Your constant support means so, so much to us and to all the archdiocese, especially Project Advance for funding a part of this evening, and for you bringing a check. I'll look for it every year, so you better be careful. You're great. I've got your number. And a special thanks to Wendy for traveling all the way from New Brunswick and her inspiring message. I really look forward to getting a copy of that. And finally, Wendy, let's give her another hand. And as I've said a few times tonight, but not often enough, let's give a big hand to our core members and our volunteers. Without them, there would be no CoSA program, none at all. We wouldn't be here tonight. So let's give them a big hand in CoSA. So we're just a few minutes behind, but before the door prizes, I'd like to ask any of you who can stay for a few minutes at the end so we can get some photos. We want to get a group photo of our volunteers, and then some of others would be wonderful if you're open to it.